Afternoon, my friends. I am going to wait while the rest of folks have a chance to log in and to register their answer on the poll. Welcome. You have found Signum Academy's, well, I've found myself, sir. You have found Signum Academy's summer reading camps. We're discussing A Wrinkle in Time by Madeline L'Engle. Oh, very good. Very good. More people are signing in. Oh, lovely. Thank you so much for joining me. My friend Sharon Hoff in Arizona is your question herder and commenteer. My name is Sparrow Alden, your fellow reader and discussionista. I can hear Sharon's voice too. Hi, Sharon. How are you? All righty. Going to close the poll, share the results, show you my screen. I'm trying to do things in the right order here. Show you my screen. Ooh, most folks say ant. Start presenting slides. Make it so that I can see Sharon's messages to me, and make it so I don't see any of the other software details, because I know Sharon will take good time of me, good care of me. Ooh, time. I guess I've got time on the brain. Chapter 11, Aunt Beast. Now, I'm going to say aunt, but many folks who responded to the poll say aunt. And some people say tia, and some people say moster, which is almost monster, and that's pretty good. That is Swedish. Moster and faster are for your mother's sister and your father's sister. Makes perfect sense to me. Alrighty. We have some threads, and I have reworded them to make them easier to think about. We're thinking about knowing by science or scientific method or by intuition. Fascinating. We're thinking about great big grand emotions, and we're thinking about happy mediums. Oh, I know. I'm sorry, one moment. I'm going to hop back and share my webcam because I'm at home where we have a good, there we go. Hi, how's everybody? Alrighty. That seems to have thrown us out of our slides, though. Fascinating. Okay, let's see what we can do. Wrinkle in Time slides. No, I don't want the end of the Wrinkle in Time slides. I want the other Wrinkle in Time slides. There we go. All right, I hope that's working. And can I, my ever loving goodness, now I can't see the chat box. Huh. I'm going to turn off my webcam again because poor GoToWebinar is having a bad day. I'm having trouble seeing Sharon's messages to me. I really need to see Sharon's messages to me. Here we go, because she's very good. And she's saying, yay, you can do it. Sharon believes in me being able to handle, there we go, being able to handle this naughty. Oh, that's not what I did. My goodness. Silly slides, they're somewhere they shouldn't be. There we go. We're starting again, Sharon. Sorry. Present my slides. And open up my Talk with Sharon department. There we go. That is much better. Very good. I realize you can't see me. However, better for me to see your questions than you to worry about my face and look at my funny faces that I make while I'm reading aloud. We're about to meet one of my very Tanta. Natalie's group in Utah noted that Tanta is another word that people can use for your aunt. And I think that is German or languages related to German. Fantastic. Okay. Good answers. I know a lot of people just call their aunt by their first name when they're talking directly to them. What if you're referring to them? Oh, I'm going to see my tia or my auntie or my auntie. Fascinating. Okay. Knowing by science or intuition, Grand emotions are a happy medium. And we've been talking about conformity, the behavior of conforming. And sometimes it's by authority because we are being forced to or convinced to by an authority figure. And sometimes it's by the consensus of all the people conforming, or most of them, who agree that if we abide by a certain standard, that everyone will be better off. Watch for that. I want you to interrupt anytime you see knowing, emotions, and conformity in this chapter. Ah ha ha, Sharon, well done. Our group agreement in folks that are meeting more than one person looking at a screen, like Sharon and I have an agreement together. We came to consensus on how we're going to treat each other. And I trust her to stay up late at night and keep the world turning. And she knows I'm going to get up early and get coffee and keep the world turning. And that we're very appreciative of each other, and that we have a habit of saying thank you a lot. And that we both abide by those rules. They're not rules. We both conform to those ideals, and we get along really, really well. And you guys in your library groups did the same thing when you made your group agreement. Remember, as readers, we can keep in our heads, how does this story element affect me? And that might be a character, or an event, or a plot point, or an image. And how does it affect the story? Does this actually move the plot forward? Does this reveal something about the character? Interesting ways to look at reading that I think you can carry these skills forward into lots of other books. I want to pause and ask, what did Mrs. L'Engle think about what she was doing, why she was doing it? Well, I had the chance to read one of her articles called Childlike Wonder and the Truths of Science Fiction that Mrs. L'Engle, Madeline L'Engle, wrote in a scholarly journal. She said, science depends on imagination, improvisation, and intuition. That is exactly what she said. Some folks say, oh gosh, I believe in science, and some folks say, oh gosh, I believe in the religious or intuitive interpretation of the world. Mrs. L'Engle is reminding us they are the same thing. That a real scientist out inventing a new way to look at the world has got to use imagination, improvisation, and intuition as one of the steps of the scientific method. How does this go together? This is more complex than words can handle, and your brain leaps, and it might feel like a gut feeling. And I was thrilled to see her write this. She said children are interested in the cosmic questions like, what is evil? But adults fear them, fear those questions, and try to hide them in theology or science. So what is evil? Well, we'll just let the priests deal with that. Or what is happening in someone's brain when they do something evil? We'll just leave that to the neuroscientists. But she believes in children and their ability to look right at the different, difficult cosmic questions. And she also said, I thought you guys would like this, that wonder is at the root of the truly religious person. And I think that is a combination of, I wonder what happens next, and looking up at the sky and feeling that transcendent sense of mystery and wonder. Yay, thanks, Mrs. L'Engle. She went on, I really love this article. She said, we do not understand time. We know that time exists only when there is mass in motion. We also know that energy and mass are interchangeable, and that pure energy is freed from the restrictions of time. One of the reasons that I took so long to find a publisher is that it was assumed that children would not be able to understand a sophisticated way of looking at time, would not understand Einstein's theories. But no theory is too hard for a child, so long as it is part of a story. Again, not only is she talking about the relationship of science and wonder and knowing, but she's telling us how she believes in kids and their ability to look with fresh eyes at something that grown-ups might think is too complicated to understand. If a child doesn't get fantasy stories, was the next topic she was writing on. She said, the monsters which all children encounter will be more monstrous because the child will not be armed with the only weapon effective against the unknown, a creative and supple imagination. Got to imagine your way out of an impossible looking situation, because if it were obvious, it wouldn't be impossible looking. Any story, whether myth, fantasy, fairy tale, or science fiction, explores and moves beyond daily concerns to wonder. A story, instead of taking a child away from real life, prepares him to live in real life with courage and expectancy. I love that. That's something I want to write in fancy, writing courage and expectancy, maybe on my calendar, where I would see it every morning and know that I can live in life with those things. Maybe that affects you the same way. I don't know. Okay. You guys tell me, why did the beasts prefer to talk to Calvin? And who in this scene was afraid of whom? And what was Meg feeling? So maybe spread out the questions. Some of you answer number 2, some of you answer number 3. I want to hear your perspective on what was going on here. I've also learned that I should settle down and be quiet while you guys type. Someone is remembering that Meg felt the arms were really strong. She was still very cold and didn't feel well at all. Yeah. Yes. Natalie's group, yeah. Meg was the most afraid of all of them. And Ruthie is thinking, the beasts are afraid of the darkness, of the black thing, which was where they all tessered through. Oh, our friends in Utah again. Calvin's gift makes him easier to talk to. Do you remember before they went on to Camazotz, Mrs. Watson said that she was strengthening Calvin's gift of communication. Remember, he almost got through to Charles Wallace. The fact that he didn't all the way get through doesn't mean he didn't have a gift of communication. It meant that it just wasn't quite enough. Yeah, Meg is really tired now. She just wants to relax because she has just been through a long, long, scary thing. And her father's back, but it doesn't fix anything. She's exhausted. And then she had to test her through the black thing. Yep. So the beasts were afraid. Father was afraid. Meg was afraid. But no one was panicking. Okay, nice. Meg tried to twist around in the beast's arms to glare at her father and Calvin. Why were they being so frank? Weren't they aware of the danger? Yep, she was definitely afraid. And by frank, they don't mean like a person's name. They mean, why were they telling the truth? Why were they telling these total strangers that they had just been on Camisards? I can't tell ya why Father and Calvin were trusting them, except maybe it goes with what Natalie's Utah group was thinking. They're tired too. At some point, you just don't have the energy to be paranoid and worried about everything. Let's see. Again, her anger dissolved as the gentle warmth from the tentacles flowed through her. She realized she could move her fingers and toes with comparative freedom, and the pain was no longer so acute. We must take this child back with us, the beast holding her said. And Meg shouted at her father, "Don't leave me the way you left Charles!" This burst of terror, a spasm of pain racked her body, and she gasped. So she had terror, she had pain, she's gasping in air. Remember why Meg was cold? What was wrong with Meg? Why is she cold? Guys, show me that you remember. Oh, Father and Calvin, say our friends, may have already been able to sense the nature of the beasts. Uh-huh, because they were not in such a bad state as Meg, right? Why was Meg in a bad state? Uh-huh. She was, there we go. She had tessered through the black thing. That is what is making her so cold. Let's find out more. Stop fighting, the beast told her. You make it worse. Relax. That's what it said, Meg cried. Father, Calvin, help! The beast turned toward Calvin and Mr. Murray. This child is in danger. You must trust us. We have no alternative, Mr. Murray said. Can you save her? I was wondering, how does Father know to trust them? And I think you guys have made the point. They, Father and Calvin, are not in such a bad state. They may be able to sense the goodness of these beasts. But you're right, Meg, you are totally right. That is what it said. Stop fighting, relax. So they're saying it for a good reason, when the man with red eyes, or it, or whoever, was saying it for taking away your freedom reasons. Oi. The black thing, yes. The black thing burns unless it is counteracted properly. The three beasts stood around Meg, and it seemed that they were feeling into her with their softly waving tentacles. The movement of the tentacles was as rhythmic and flowing as the dance of an undersea plant. And lying there, Cradled in the four strange arms, Meg, despite herself, felt a sense of security that was deeper than anything she had known since the days when she lay in her mother's arms in the old rocking chair and was sung to sleep. With her father's help, she had been able to resist it. Now she could hold out no longer. I have a beautiful response from Natalie Gregory's group. The beast's willingness to help makes Dr. Murray willing to trust, relying on his parenting instincts, his intuition, something more complex than words is helping him trust them. Beautifully done. Alrighty. In this passage, is this exactly the right passage? Here we are. She leaned her head against the beast's chest and realized that the gray body was covered with the softest, most delicate fur imaginable. And the fur had the same beautiful odor as the air. I hope I don't smell awful to it, she thought. But then she knew with a deep sense of comfort that even if she did smell awful, the beasts would forgive her. Sharon is pointing out that she would love to have the Aunt Beast abilities. Yes, to give such comfort, to find where the hurt is and help it heal. Ms. Gregory's group says, if Meg can feel this much goodness, even though she's damaged, do the men she traveled with feel the goodness more easily than she does? Yeah. And this passage about finally relaxing into Aunt Beast and the description of Aunt Beast, I realized this morning as I was reading it, it was this passage back when I was about 10 years old, reading the book for the first time, that made gray my favorite color. So I thought I'd better stop and have some gray pictures, because this is why gray is my favorite color. It's like clouds and like lakes and storms and horses and beautiful flowing clothes and Aunt Beast, the softest, most delicately fragranced fur and strong loving tentacles. Anyway, that's what gray makes me think of, so that's why it's my favorite color. She could feel the frigid stiffness of her body relaxing against it. This bliss could not come to her from a thing like it. It could only give pain, never relieve it. The beasts must be good. They had to be good. She sighed deeply like a very small child, and suddenly she was asleep. Now, this passage makes me wonder. I observe that it could only give pain, never relieve it. But in previous chapters, it seemed that it can give numbness, which is like relieving the pain that it was earlier giving, or the stress of not conforming. So there are things that might feel good temporarily, and that's not the same as feeling bliss and deep healing, which can only come from goodly creatures like these beasts. Okay, fascinating. Thank you so much, Sharon, for that note. When Meg wakes back up, she says, "What a funny little tadpole you are. Is the pain gone now? Can you guys remember what ways the beings cared for Meg? And what do we know about them so far? These scientists, what did you observe about the beasts? We're trying to analyze what these beasts are, or at least what they're like." From earlier, we know they're really tall, tentacles, gray, fur. They gave her soft clothing, that robe to wrap up in. They gave her food and made her eat slowly. You know how you, even though you're really hungry, if you're very sick, you got to slow down. Yeah, they definitely know about it, or the black thing. The tentacles are extremely sensitive to feeling and touch, and they smell good. I love the details that they smell great. They smell like springtime. This is wonderful. What is this dark? What is this light? We do not understand. Your father and the boy Kelvin have asked this too. They say it is night now on your planet, and our planet, and that they cannot see. They have told us that our atmosphere is what they call opaque, so that the stars are not visible. And then they were surprised that we know stars, that we know their music and the movements of their dance far better than beings like you, who spend hours studying them through what you call telescopes. That's it, library group. They can hear the stars. Remember earlier they talked about they are fighting the black thing? Who helps you? Oh, the stars? There were three things that help them, and one of them was stars. And I said, whoa, they understand about Mrs. Whatsit. Wow. I love this. But Father, remember, Meg's moods, can someone grab a crayon and a big piece of paper and make a graph of Meg's moods? It's intensely good and then intensely bad and then intensely good, and now she's intensely bad again. But Father left him, Meg said. He's got to bring him back. He can't just abandon Charles Wallace. What I was interested in was the change in Aunt Beast. The beast's communication suddenly became crisp. We know that just because we want something does not mean that we will get what we want. Oh. Meg sounds a little bit like, can you tell me how she sounds? Yeah, you guys come up with some adjectives for how Meg sounds, what her mood seems to be. Not when she's really relaxing into the healing stuff, but when she's talking about Father and Charles Wallace and leaving them. I want to know your words for how she sounds. I'm going to move on, but you guys type, okay? We would never leave him behind the shadow, but for now you must relax. You must be happy. You must get well. The gentle words, the feeling that this beast would be able to love her, no matter what she said or did, lapped Meg in warmth and peace. I've got a great question from Sharon. Do the beasts only speak as a collective? We would never leave him behind. Let's keep our eyes out and see if Aunt Beast refers to herself. Oh, Natalie, desperate. Desperate. Meg sounds desperate. And do you guys know how to break that word down? D, so without, spera, which is Latin for hope. She is without hope. She also sounds anxious. Yeah. And oh, you guys are seeing exactly what I was saying, or hearing it in our minds. She sounds a little bit like a spoiled brat, gotta say. And she could become annoying before too long. I'm looking at the gentle words, the feeling that this beast would be able to love her no matter what she said or did, lapped Meg in warmth and peace. And I was fascinated because that's not like a happy medium. Peace is more of a neutral feeling. So I looked it up because you can search on Kindle for the word peace. And Meg senses peace only when they first land on Uriel, which was the other planet, when she is first held by her father, in this scene right now, warmth and peace. And there's one other important moment in the book when Meg feels peace. It is really important to the plot. And I want you to watch for it, look for it in the next chapter, in the last chapter. Okay? Okay. If you have time to crack the book tonight, look for when Meg finally gets herself to peace instead of it being caused by Uriel or her father or the beasts. Okay, here we go. Something completely indescribably and incredibly delicious was put to Meg's lips, and she swallowed gratefully. With each swallow, she felt strength returning to her body. And she realized she had had nothing to eat since the horrible fake turkey dinner on Camazotz, which she had barely tasted. How long ago was her mother's due? Time no longer had any meaning. Well, the reason I pulled that out, because time no longer had any meaning. This is about time travel, and it's starting to happen in Meg's brain that time doesn't go at exactly the same pace in exactly a forward direction without stuttering and stammering, and time is starting to lose its meaning. She's starting to get to a deeper understanding of it. Or maybe she's just very hungry. Okay, here we go. No, now this is Aunt B speaking. No, mother is a one name, and a father you have here, not just friend, nor teacher, nor brother, nor sister. What is acquaintance? What a funny, hard word. Aunt, maybe. Yes, perhaps that will do. And you think of such odd words about me. Thing. And monster. Monster, what a horrid sort of word. I really do not think I am a monster. Beast? That will do. Aunt Beast. Now, here's an example of one of the native people talking of themselves in the singular. I don't think I am a monster. And of course, it's in the passage where she is getting a unique name in Meg's understanding. Huh. Sharon, I think you asked a really good question back there. Tell me about Aunt Beast's music and about what Meg is realizing about sight and sense and smell and sound. Does anyone remember the description of the music? I must say that to the Boatwright family and to Natalie Gregory's group in Utah, you are the only folks I think who are signed in. So every question you've got to be on the ball to answer. What do you remember about the music? Yeah, the singing was the most beautiful. It seemed to me that it wasn't just a voice, that her body was part of the singing and the air was part of the singing, and the beauty of it was very hard. to describe, for Meg to think about in words. It was, I mean, it was out of this world, not meaning that we're on another planet, but it was otherworldly and glorious, and that, oh, the beasts have the ability to understand, yes, beyond what Meg has the ability to understand. Beautifully said. I love that. She realized now that here on this planet there was no need for color, that the grays and browns merging into each other were not what the beasts knew, and that what she herself saw was only the smallest fraction of what the planet was really like. It was she who was limited by her senses, not the blind beasts, for they must have senses of which she could not even dream. Wow. We look not at the things which are what you would call seen, but at the things which are not seen. For the things which are seen are temporal, but the things which are not seen are eternal. Ruth says it is very beautiful. That song was itself peaceful. Very powerful word. And the words that Aunt Beast just used sound beautiful and peaceful to me. And about, we're not looking at the grass. We're seeing things which are eternal. It occurred to me, I knew a quotation from one of the books from Mrs. L'Engle's religion that she loved. It might be a book that you have read. And the quotation almost means the same thing. Now we see through a glass, darkly, but then face to face. Now I know in part, but then I shall know even also as I am known. The difference between things we see dimly and seeing not with your eyes, but face to face, just spirit to spirit. What an amazing sensation. So I wonder if Mrs. L'Engle was thinking about that story from the book called 1 Corinthians. Here is Father speaking again. Oh, yeah, friends in Utah talked about how much it takes to really get to know someone. You might know that they play basketball, you might know about them, but to know them and their spirit and their dreams and whether they are good in their hearts, that takes time. Yeah. Father said, we were trying to work out a plan to rescue Charles Wallace, since I made such a mistake in tessering away from it. We feel it would not be wise for me to try to get back to Camazotz, even alone. If I missed the mark again, I could easily get lost and wander forever from galaxy to galaxy. Okay, that's why Father can't go back, because he can't get there. And the glasses have lost their virtue, which means they've lost their power. Virtue comes from a Latin word meaning powerfulness. They're just made of glass now. Mr. Murray said nothing. This was after Meg was really angry and anxious and desperate and kind of bratty again. Meg could see she had wounded him deeply. She reacted as she would have reacted to Mr. Jenkins. She scowled down at the table, saying, we've got to ask them for help now. You're just stupid if you think we don't. Yeah, the glasses were a one-time use, one crisis use pair of glasses. Thank you, friends. All of a sudden, Meg is acting like she acted back in chapter 1 with Mr. Jenkins, scowling at the table and being really bratty. Wow. What's going on, guys? Anytime you've got an intuition about what's going on with Meg, Go ahead and send it in. Aunt Beast spoke to the others. The child is distraught. Don't judge her harshly. She was almost taken by the black thing. Sometimes we can't know what spiritual damage it leaves, even when physical recovery is complete. You know what? That is such extraordinary advice. And that's something that I am going to try. And I don't know. You tell me if that you might be inspired to try it too. To not judge people harshly, because I don't know what spiritual damage or damage to the heart or damage to the mind someone else has gone through. If I see someone with a broken leg, I'm going to give them extra time to get to the door. I'm happy to hold the door for them. But sometimes I can't see that someone's really hurt or sad or broken or terrified. So I'm going to try to do that, to not judge her harshly. Oh my word. Friends in Utah point out that when Meg says it's stupid to not ask for help, that's exactly what Mr. Jenkins would say. We have help for you. Oh, don't be stupid. Ask for the help. Oh, yeah. We have dropped right back to chapter 1. Fascinating stuff here. How did they try to explain the Mrs. W's? Yeah, they kept trying to explain what they looked like, right? And that's, which is silly, which is not what they look like. Then you try to describe the flying centaur thing, which is also not what they look like. Here is my biggest question of the whole book. The beasts know that the stars help them fight the black thing. The children know Mrs. Whatsit was a star, and probably the other two were too. Why don't they just say they are the spirits of stars who died fighting the black thing? Because that, why, I don't know. That is my big question. Okay, sorry. Angels, Calvin shouted suddenly from across the table. Guardian angels! There was a moment's silence. And he shouted again, his face tense with concentration. Messengers! Messengers of God! I thought for a moment he started. Yeah, Charles Wallace might have thought of the star connection. If he had been there, I bet Charles Wallace would have thought of this. Unfortunately, they don't think of it. And we see here where Calvin, of the 3 humans on this planet, excuse me, had to take a sip. Calvin is the best communicator. He's picturing in his mind what the Mrs. W's mean to them. And that helps him come up with these words, angels and messengers. I'm going to tell you something really fun that I'm sure Mrs. L'Engle knew. The word angels comes from a Greek word, and it means messengers. Funky. Thank you very much. They are very young, and on their earth, as they call it, they never communicate with other planets. They revolve about all alone in space. Oh, the thin beast said, aren't they lonely? But suddenly a thundering voice reverberated throughout the great hall. We are here! Whew. Whew. So marvelous. The three Mrs. W's are finally there communicating who they are. Notice in the beginning of the next chapter, the beasts are not all, oh, what mysterious thing are you? They totally understand the three Mrs. W's once the three Mrs. W's are there. I got a beautiful question. Do you think, you got it, Bella, Mrs. Witch is back. Do you think that all stars become those beings, those more than centaur beings? And that's a question from Ms. Gregory's group. Wow. Well, that's a wonderful question. And that causes me to have more questions. I wonder, are all stars in this world, in our world, the way that Mrs. L'Engle was imagining it and recreating it and communicating it to us? Are all stars sentient? If yes, or the ones that are sentient, are they good beings of light? That one I'm going to put a check mark on. At least the ones that are sentient. Maybe they all are. They're good beings of light, able to fight the blackness. Oh. And able to, I think this is very important, able to choose whether or not to fight the darkness. It's not an automatic thing. I think watching Mrs. Whatsit's response to them all seeing the star fight and win, but then die, I think that it affected her so greatly because she chose it. Oh, but this gets me back to the original question. Do I think that star spirits, once the physical gas that emanates light has burned out, do they become those planet Uriel special, wonderful, singing, amazing centaurs? What a good question. Never occurred to me. I thought those were the natives, and Mrs. Whatsit was changing herself to look like the native critters. But those native critters were singing that hymn praise psalm of joy and devotion and loyalty. So maybe that is a place where star spirits go after they've given up their star bodies, their physical star bodies. Maybe that's what Uriel is a resting and healing place for star spirits. I never thought of that. That is fabulous. Thank you. And Calvin sees. Oh, yeah. Remember earlier in the chapter, Calvin saw that we on Earth are pretty impulsive and too violent to have visitors from another planet. We may not be so much lonely on our planet as antisocial, and the very smart other beings traveling the galaxy are just not stopping here. Sharon, that is a beautiful, beautiful thought. That Sharon always felt that those wonderful centaur, more than centaur, rainbow winged creatures were definitely star spirits. And she has been considering, imagining, and picturing the spirit of our own star, of Sol, which in English we call the sun. What a wonderful thing. I think next time I'm out in the sunlight, I'm going to put on my shades. I'm still not going to look directly, but I'm going to wave to our star. And I'm going to tell it that I believe in it. Oh. All right. I put our threads at the end because we're getting to the point of wrapping up our 2 weeks together. Wow. So, what did you see about knowing by science or intuition? Dr. Murray, the dad, is a scientist. He's a physicist. And what did he do in this chapter? Comment on any one of the threads if you like. I'm thinking in particular about the scene when he just says, we have to trust you beings from this totally strange planet. I think he is a scientist who is using intuition. He doesn't say, intuition is silly or my gut feeling doesn't have meaning. I think he's one of the characters who demonstrate that science uses intuition. Other thoughts about that? Other thoughts about the way that emotions are running in this? Oh yeah. Oh, I always thought this is one of the comments. I always thought how tired he must have been to have been resisting it for so long. And then he had to switch immediately, bam, to the emergency of rescuing Calvin and Meg, and then use his intuition to make really difficult decisions. This guy had to be exhausted from that long, drawn-out siege of it against him. And then, wham, he had to go into action. Maybe that exhaustion helped him let go of, I must work everything out, and just jump to, these good beings look like me when I am parenting. I'm going to go with it. Oh, Miss Gregory is saying it. Dr. Murray is a humbled man. Remember when he was in this chapter before this, when he gets to explain everything to Calvin? I'd like to point out that having Calvin along and Meg just unconscious allows us to have a whole chapter where Father explains things. I thought that was clever. That chapter affected me by explaining stuff in the background that I was curious about. Anyway, so he talks to Calvin about how he learned they really don't know anything and that now he is humble, or at least humbler. He's trusting his instincts a little more than scientifically directly observable to the senses right now. Whew, my word. Did anyone notice what was the room? How was the room set up on eggshell when Meg was taken into the meal and Father said, we are discussing how to rescue Charles Wallace? What did the room, not, we know it's all gray, we know things are big, but how was the furniture arranged? That's what I'm getting at. How was the furniture arranged in the room where the plan for the rescue mission was happening? I am not crazy. Well, I bet your typing speeds are getting better this week. What kind of furniture was there and how is it arranged? remember back on Camazotz, when they went to talk to it, the big gross brain thing was up on a dais up above people, and Charles went up and stood next to it, and they all looked down on Calvin and Meg. I think Ann Father was with them at that point. Okay, so it didn't make a big impression, but I want to contrast that scene on Camazotz. Our folks to say it did not make a big impression on anyone. They were all at a table. Everyone was around a table having a discussion like equals. They weren't exactly alike, but they were equal participants in the conversation. So that's what made me feel like this is an example of people finding a plan and then conforming to the plan by consensus and discussion rather than authority, like a brain up on a dais looking down at you. Kind of gross. Sorry, disembodied brains is where we've gotten to. Okay. But that affected me by seeing all these people at least a little bit trust each other and at least a little bit care about each other. And have you ever noticed if you give a little trust, the next person can trust you more? And it kind of is this positive spiral? Yeah. Some classrooms I see where one person is looking down at folks, and other classrooms, people are looking around kind of a circle or a rectangle, whatever the shape of the furniture is. It's very interesting, very different ways of learning and thinking. Okay. I would love to show you the character braid, except for two things. Number one, my webcam isn't working. So, and number two, I packed it in a bag yesterday, and when I pulled it out today, all the push pins came out. So right now it's a mess. I will take a picture of it and make a slide of it, and then we'll decide whether we like character braids. All right, I hope that you get a chance to glance at the chapter tonight and look for peacefulness. I want to check out. I feel like I was better at waiting for folks to type. Thank you so much for that. And you know what? I would like to ask if folks have comments about the movie, which we saved for the end of our discussion. Can you email them, please, to camp@signumu.org really soon, like within the next couple of hours. And the questions will get passed on to me by Sharon so that I can make a slide for each of the kinds of points we want to talk about the movie. So tomorrow we'll cover chapter 12, which is a beautiful chapter. We'll talk a little bit about the movie, not about how it's not exactly the same as the book, because of course it's not exactly the same as the book. It's not a book. But some of the choices that the director and the producers made. Guys, I think it is close to 3 o'clock my time, 12 o'clock Sharon's time, and every time in between or around the globe. I have had so much fun. I'll talk to you tomorrow, and it's going to be the wrap-up of Signum Academy's book camp. Wow. What a good time we've had. So send me questions. Send questions to that email address so that I can pack everything you want to talk about into slides. Send it soon so I can make my slides tonight after supper, okay? Thank you so much. Take care, my friends.